Hey, what is up? Zach here, and I am so pumped for the performance review and play test of the brand new On Roger Pro. So much so that I've got my blue socks, Nike fanny pack sandals on because this is a special occasion. I still have a ton of questions about this shoe. Number one, is that continuous rubber pattern really going to be good for grip, or is it really only good for professionals? Number two, that hard foam, is that going to be really performance driven, or is it going to give some comfort? I think we're about to find out. Let's get on court. These treads are made for somebody that plays consistently on the balls of their feet. This is not for someone that has bad footwork. I noticed if I'm really concentrating, bouncing the balls of my foot, good split step, then this shoe is gripping fantastic. Notice if I'm getting a little more flat-footed, a little more lazy, this shoe actually has a little bit of a harder time pushing off. So it's almost like a player's racket version of a shoe. The one thing I'm not thinking about though is the fit. These uppers are so light, so comfortable, absolutely zero break-in time on the uppers. However, you can feel that the midsole foam is just a little stiff. Because the lateral flange is so wide and it has the plastic clip on the top of it, you really have no issues really planting, getting down low, and really throwing your body weight around a shot, especially like a buggy whip forehand. One thing I love about this shoe. All right, it's just starting to heat up on the court. These shoes are actually still staying pretty cool. The tongue is really well ventilated, as are the uppers. Just kind of a more nimble shoe in general. However, it is really hard to overstate just how much weight is centered in the forefoot of this shoe. 99% of the engineering of this shoe is engineered for the forefoot. This shoe really wants you to play up on the balls of your foot. And if you can do that effectively, this shoe is really gonna reward you. If you can't, it's gonna punish you. You want a comparison to these shoes? There are a couple shoes mixed together. Number one, the Nike Vapor 10, kind of Nike Vapor 9. Number two, Lotto Mirage 100. And number three, the New Balance Fresh Foam Lab V1. The outsole tread of the V1, pretty similar to this. The midsole foam reminds me a lot of the Lotto Mirage 100. And just the overall quickness of the shoe reminds me of the Nike Vapor 9 and 10. And a kind of surprising thing about these shoes on the serve test, an average of 30 centimeters. When I first looked at these shoes, I thought, I will not get more than 21, 22 centimeters on these because they look so minimalist. However, because the midsole foam is so stiff and really responsive, it does have a lot of spring to it. Plus, the shank is just so broad, it really does add kind of a bigger cantilever to the shoe. So in all, it does give you a lot of spring back. It just doesn't give you a lot of plush comfort. Shoe is really a conundrum, as it looks like a minimalist shoe from a little far away. Once you put it on, it is definitely a maximalist shoe. There's a lot to it. It's pretty chunky. But then it also plays like more of a minimalist shoe. So there is a lot of engineering that has gone on into the shoe to make it as protective and as maximalist as possible while making it feel super light, kind of like a professional would need. The one thing I love about this continuous rubber pattern is that your foot feels the ground so well. Your toes really interact with the ground. It's almost like an F1 car racing slicks, because those drivers, they really like the continuous pattern because their foot can kind of feel the ground, feel the track on the gas pedal because there's just so much ground contact on the wheel. It's the same in these shoes. If you just notice, even when I'm coming up there to plant, I really can kind of feel where I'm gonna be and kind of get myself in a confident position, especially when I'm kind of awkward at the net and in no man's land, and I was able to kind of make that stab volley. My dad actually just brought up a really good point. These treads, although they do grip a really good hard court well, these hard courts we play on are really well maintained. They have a lot of grit to them. If you're playing on a hard court that's a little slicker, just doesn't really get the paint job redone all the time, these are going to end up slipping a lot because there just isn't much tread depth to them. Also, if you look at the suicide test, 14.78 seconds really wasn't anything special for how good the shoe did feel while brand new on the court. And that's just because I wasn't used to not being able to just throw my right foot down and kind of stop on a dime. These shoes require a lot more kind of finesse footwork versus the more industrial footwork on the suicide test where I'm just going, stopping, and trying to get their direction. These shoes really did start to slide underneath me. They're just so nimble and fast otherwise that my time kind of made up for it. And if you watched my video on why these weren't for sale for so long, I think a lot of the things kind of are starting to ring true in that video. These shoes just are not made for recreational use. These shoes are made almost as like a single type use shoe. You go out there, you play your hardest on them, and they're kind of done because you can already see just after about 2 hours of play, the rubber is starting to wear down on these shoes, especially on the inside and outside, kind of right where the shoe starts sliding on the hard court. So these shoes really are going to give you max performance for a short amount of time, and then they are going to start wearing down pretty quick after that. One thing I'm noticing after about an hour and 15 minutes on these is I really can feel the ground in the forefoot because there's not much tread depth on these. Your foot is right on the asphalt. So that's not bad if you're someone like Federer who can get more and more of these shoes whenever you want. However, this is your shoe for the long haul. You're gonna start to feel the ground in these, just no way to avoid it. But if I had to describe the On Roger Pro in one word, it would have to be nostalgic. If you look at that building right up there, that used to be just a little wooden hut that I used to work in back when I was in high school, when I used to groom those clay courts up there. And I remember using the work computer to write to ESPN to ask them to please show more of Roger Federer's matches during Wimbledon. And that ended up being the Wimbledon he won his first major title. And now all these years later, I'm back at the same courts as a foot doctor reviewing his signature shoes and probably one of his last years on tour. Just pretty cool. And I'd have to say, even though these shoes I probably would not want to be using on a day-to-day basis, I'd rather have something with just a little bit more tread depth, a little more of an all-court pattern. If you can get your hands on them, I really do think it is a great shoe just to have, just for the collection to say that you had his shoe, because you really can tell that a professional did design these shoes. I think that's what's so cool about it. And obviously one of the professionals that's one of the greatest of all time. Now, right now, you have to go on On's website and actually apply to be able to buy these, or on Kith's website. They have some models still available. However, it is a very limited supply. I will link both those down in the description. They are obviously not sponsoring the channel or anything like that, just for ease of use if you want to try to get yourself just a little piece of tennis history. But even with all that said, I still want to know, are you interested in buying a pair of these, whether for your collector shelf or to play in? Let me know in the comments down below. Now, if you want to take a dive into the specs, weight, fit, materials, and of course, teardown of the On Roger Pro, make sure you click in this video up above. And make sure you're subscribed, because the head-to-head that we all want to see is coming up soon. Respect your rubber and foam. I'll see you in the next video.